My name is Caroline Hale, and I am 32 years old. I stand alone in the bridal suite at Alder Ridge Estate, staring at my reflection like it belongs to someone else. The dress fits perfectly. That's the cruel part. Every seam lies flat, every pearl button aligned down my spine like a promise kept by everyone except the people who were supposed to be here. The stylist did exactly what she said she would. My hair falls in loose waves, soft enough to look effortless, controlled enough to look intentional. My makeup is subtle, luminous skin, defined eyes, lips the color of pressed petals. I look calm, radiant, even. You would never guess I've checked my phone 13 times in the last 20 minutes. I check it again. Nothing, no call from my mother, no text from my father, no message from my brother, Simon. The screen goes dark in my hand. On the vanity beside me, my bouquet waits, white ranunculus and eucalyptus, tied with silk ribbon. I chose it because it smelled clean, like new beginnings, like something that didn't carry history. A soft knock interrupts the silence. "Lena," the wedding planner's voice is gentle, too gentle. She opens the door just enough to look at me, clipboard pressed to her chest. Her smile is professional, but her eyes give her away. Concern always leaks through at the edges. "It's time," she says. "Are you ready?" I don't answer right away. Instead, I turn toward the window. The ceremony space spreads out below us. A perfect rectangle of white chairs arranged on manicured grass, the vineyard rolling out behind them in neat green lines. String lights hang dormant above the aisle, waiting for dusk. The quartet has started tuning. 87 guests are seated. I know the number because I counted twice. And in the front row, 3 chairs sit empty. Not accidentally empty, intentionally reserved. They look like accusations. "They're not coming," I say quietly. The planner's smile flickers. "There's still a few minutes. Sometimes traffic. We offered to pay for flights," I say. "Hotels, cars." I don't look at her because I don't need her reaction. "We offered everything." Silence stretches between us. She exhales carefully. "I'm so sorry." That's confirmation enough. I smooth my hands down the silk of my gown, grounding myself in the texture. Real, present, under my control. "Okay," I say. "Let's go." The doors open, the music swells, and I walk alone. Every head turns. The sound of movement, fabric shifting, people leaning ripples through the garden. I feel it before I see it, the collective realization that something is wrong. There should be someone with me. My father traditionally, my mother proudly, even my brother reluctantly. Instead, there is just me. I keep my gaze forward, but I can feel it, the sympathy, the curiosity. The whispers that slip through fingers pressed too late to lips. Some people smile at me with encouragement. Others look away, embarrassed on my behalf. Each reaction lands like a small, precise bruise. I breathe in, out, one step, another. At the end of the aisle, Noah waits. He doesn't look confused. He doesn't look pitying. He looks at me like this is exactly how it's supposed to be. When I reach him, he takes my hands without hesitation. His palms are warm, steady. "I'm here," he murmurs. "You're not alone." My throat tightens, but I nod. This matters more than the absence behind me. As the officiant speaks, my mind drifts, not forward but backward. I'm 7 years old, standing in the kitchen, holding a piece of paper covered in bright watercolor strokes. My art teacher wrote exceptional sense of composition in red pen across the top. I remember the pride burning in my chest. "Mom," I said, tugging lightly at her sleeve, "look what I made." She glanced at it for half a second. "That's nice, Lena." Then she turned back to stirring the soup. Later that night, my father came home carrying Simon's soccer trophy. They placed it on the mantel like a sacred object, adjusting the angle until it caught the light just right. They took photos, sent them to relatives. When I asked why they couldn't come to my school art show, my father sighed. "Simon has more potential," he said. "He needs focus. You understand, right?" I did understand. That was the problem. The ceremony continues. I speak my vows clearly, each word chosen with intention. "I choose a life where we see each other," I tell Noah, "not perfectly but honestly." His eyes shine. When we're pronounced married, his mother pulls me into a fierce embrace. "You're ours now," she whispers. "Completely." Something in my chest loosens, just a little, enough to breathe. The reception blurs into movement and sound. Noah spins me beneath the lights. His cousins laugh too loudly. His friends toast too enthusiastically. My college roommate raises her glass and says, "To finding the people who choose you back." The words hit harder than I expect. For moments at a time, I forget. I forget the empty seats. I forget the unanswered phone. I forget the explanations I made on their behalf. Then the music fades and the quiet creeps back in. I slip away to check my phone one last time. Still nothing. No apology, no excuse, not even a lie. Noah finds me there, leaning against the stone wall. "They missed something beautiful," he says. "Yes," I reply, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounds. "They did." I place the phone face down. Their absence doesn't get to define this day, not anymore. That night, as we leave the vineyard under a sky streaked with stars, I realize something quietly seismic. I have spent my entire life trying to earn a seat in rooms where no one planned to save me a chair. And today, of all days, I walked forward anyway. 3 weeks after the wedding, I returned to work. Not because I have to, Noah insists we could take more time, but because stillness makes the absence louder. Because productivity has always been my most reliable anesthetic. My office sits on the 12th floor of a converted warehouse downtown. Exposed brick, tall windows, long communal tables. It smells like coffee and ambition. The kind of place where people believe ideas can change the trajectory of their lives. I helped build it from nothing. That still surprises people. They look at my calm, my restraint, my tendency to listen before I speak, and assume I was raised with safety nets and certainty. They don't see the years I learned to be self-sufficient because no one noticed when I needed help. "Welcome back, Lena," calls out Priya from the design team. "Married life treating you well?" "Well enough to keep me smiling through budget reviews," I say, dropping my bag by my desk. She laughs. "That's true love." I smile back, but something inside me tightens. People always want the headline version of happiness. They don't want the footnotes. By noon, I'm deep into a strategy meeting for the Catalyst Fellowship, our flagship program supporting underrepresented creatives with funding, mentorship, and studio access. I founded it 5 years ago, after watching too many brilliant people burn out trying to justify their existence to institutions that never planned to invest in them. The irony is not lost on me. "We're seeing record applications," Marcus says, pulling up a chart, "but our selection process needs tightening. There's concern we're favoring narrative over feasibility." I lean back in my chair. "Narrative is feasibility," I say calmly. "If someone can articulate why the work matters, they'll figure out how to build it." A pause, then nods. "This is my strength, clarity without aggression. Authority without performance. I learned it early. When you grow up unheard, you either disappear or learn to speak in a way people can't ignore." That evening, my phone lights up with a name I haven't seen since the wedding. Mom, I stare at it as it rings. Once, I would have answered immediately. Heart racing, hopeful, braced for disappointment, but unable to stop wanting. Now, I let it go to voicemail. The message arrives seconds later. Her voice sounds careful, measured. "Lena, it's your mother. We've been very busy, but I wanted to check in. The wedding looked lovely in the photos Noah's aunt posted. I hope everything went well." She pauses. "We should talk soon." That's it. No apology, no acknowledgement of absence, no explanation, just an implication that time has passed, therefore the slate is clean. I don't call back. Not because I'm angry, because I'm tired of pretending silence doesn't count as a choice. Noah notices, of course. He always does. We're cooking dinner together, pasta, garlic, something simple, when he says, "You don't owe them a response." I glance up. "I know. You don't sound convinced." I stir the sauce slowly. I spent years believing that if I was patient enough, accomplished enough, unproblematic enough, they'd eventually show up. And now I'm starting to think they like the version of me that exists at a distance. Noah turns off the stove and faces me fully. "That's not a reflection of your worth." "I know," I say again. This time I mean it. The invitation arrives a week later, an embossed envelope, thick paper. My parents' address stamped neatly on the back. Inside, a formal notice for my father's retirement gala. 50 years in finance, distinguished service, black tie. My name is listed on the RSVP card. Plus spouse. No mention of the wedding they missed. No mention of the silence that followed, just an assumption of access. I laugh once, sharp and surprised. They want you there, Noah says gently, reading over my shoulder. They want the idea of me there, I correct. Successful daughter, married, proof of legacy. He watches me carefully. Do you want to go? The question lands heavier than it should. I think of 7-year-old me in the kitchen, of empty chairs, of unanswered calls. I don't know yet, I say honestly. And for the first time, I don't rush myself toward a decision. At work, things accelerate. A National Arts Council reaches out about a partnership. A major donor requests a private meeting. A profile piece runs in a design journal, calling me a quiet architect of cultural access. My inbox fills. My calendar tightens. Visibility, I've learned, is a double-edged thing. It brings resources and scrutiny. During a panel discussion, someone asks, "How did your family influence your leadership style?" The room quiets. I smile politely. They taught me what happens when potential isn't nurtured, I say. I chose to build something different. The moderator blinks. The audience murmurs. I don't elaborate. I don't need to. That night, alone in my office, I pull out a legal pad and write 2 columns. What I owe, what I choose. Under owe, I write nothing. Under choose, I write. Integrity presence work that doesn't require me to disappear relationships that show up without negotiation. I stare at the list for a long time. Then, I add one more line. Boundaries, even when they disappoint people, I fold the page and tuck it into my bag. When I finally respond to my mother's voicemail, it's brief. I hope you're well. I'm focusing on work and settling into married life. I'm not available for the gala, but I wish Dad a good retirement. I read it twice. No accusations, no explanations, no apology, just truth. I hit send. My hands don't shake. Later, curled up beside Noah, I realize something quietly profound. Success used to feel like leverage. Like if I gathered enough proof of my value, I could finally force recognition from the people who withheld it. Now, it feels like something else entirely. A platform, a responsibility, a choice. And for the first time in my life, I'm beginning to understand this. Not everyone who shares your blood deserves your access. And not every door that opens needs to be walked through. Visibility changes the temperature of a room. I don't notice it at first, not consciously, just small things. Conversations that pause when I enter. Smiles that don't quite reach people's eyes. The subtle recalibration of power when someone realizes you're no longer asking to be included. It's not hostility. It's assessment. The Catalyst Fellowship announcement goes live on a Monday morning. Expanded funding. A new residency space. A partnership with the National Arts Council that took 6 months of quiet negotiation and one very public leap of faith. By noon, my inbox is unmanageable. By Tuesday, my name is trending in a corner of the internet I didn't know existed. By Friday, the praise starts to acquire a strange edge. She came out of nowhere. She's impressive, but who's backing her? She's very polished for someone so understated. Understated is often code for we can't place you. And people don't like what they can't place. The first warning comes disguised as opportunity. A man named Richard Hale requests a meeting. Senior advisor at a legacy philanthropic firm. He's been watching my work, he says, admires my restraint, my vision, my potential. We meet in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the city. You've built something remarkable, Richard says, steepling his fingers. But scale requires alignment. With what, I ask, with people who know how the system works. There it is. He slides a proposal across the table, generous funding, long-term security, visibility on a level that would make future expansion effortless. In exchange, a board seat. Final approval on donor selection. Quiet veto power over high-risk fellows. High-risk how? I ask. He smiles. Narratively controversial, politically sensitive, you understand? I do. And I also understand what he's offering me. Safety at the cost of teeth. I'll review it, I say politely. He nods, satisfied. Of course. I'd hate to see you burn out fighting battles you don't need to fight. That night, Noah listens as I pace our living room. They don't want the work, I say. They want the optics of the work. Controlled, palatable. And you, he asks. I want it to stay honest, I say without hesitation. He smiles softly. Then you already have your answer. I do, but answers don't erase consequences. The rejection email I send Richard is gracious, appreciative, firm. Within a week, 2 donor meetings are postponed indefinitely. Within 2 weeks, a board member asks, casually, whether my leadership style might be too personal for the organization's next phase. Too personal, as if integrity is a flaw when it can't be leveraged. At the quarterly board meeting, the tension finally surfaces. We need to talk about risk exposure, says Elaine, a venture philanthropist who joined last year. The fellowship is becoming associated with activism. Art is inherently political, I reply calmly, so is deciding whose voices matter. Elaine smiles thinly. Donors don't like surprises. Neither do marginalized communities, I say, yet they live with them constantly. Silence. Then Marcus clears his throat. Lena's vision is the reason we're here. Diluting it would cost us more than it gains. I meet his eyes, grateful. Not everyone speaks up when it costs them social capital. After the meeting, Maya finds me in the hallway. They're scared of you, she says, not unkindly. Of what? Of the fact that you don't need them as much as they need to feel relevant. I laugh quietly. That's generous. It's accurate, she insists. You don't perform gratitude. She's right, I never learned how. The article publishes 2 weeks later, not an attack, something subtler. A think piece questioning whether founder-led nonprofits risk becoming personality-driven echo chambers. My name isn't in the headline, but it's threaded throughout the text like a suggestion the reader is meant to reach on their own. I read it once. Then again, everything is framed as a question. No accusations, no facts wrong, just implication. I feel the familiar pull, the old instinct to explain, soften, contextualize, to make myself smaller so others feel comfortable. I close the tab. That reflex doesn't get to run my life anymore. My mother calls that night. I don't answer. She leaves a message anyway. I saw something online, she says. You should be careful, Lena. Visibility invites criticism. Maybe it's time to be a little less exposed. I delete the voicemail without responding. She still thinks safety comes from shrinking. I know better now. The staff meeting the next morning is full. Faces tight, energy alert. I stand at the front, not elevated, just visible. We're going to get questions, I say, from donors, from the press. From people who benefited from our silence before, murmurs ripple. We will answer them with facts, I continue, with transparency, and without apology for our values. Maya raises her hand. What if it costs us? I meet her gaze. Then it reveals who is never invested in the work, only in control. The room stills, resolve settles in. That evening, alone in my office, I catch my reflection in the darkened window. I look older than I did a year ago, not tired, sharper. I think of the empty chairs at my wedding, of my father's gala invitation, of every room where love was conditional. And I understand something with startling clarity. Power doesn't announce itself when you acquire it. It announces itself when people try to take it away. I turn off the lights. Tomorrow, I will choose again, and again, and again. The questions arrive dressed as concern. They come in emails with careful subject lines, just checking in, quick clarification, looking ahead. They arrive from donors who have never asked about governance before, from advisors suddenly curious about long-term optics, from acquaintances who mistake proximity for permission. I answer none of them immediately. Instead, I ask for data. Transparency has always been my instinct, not because it's virtuous, but because it removes ambiguity. And ambiguity is where power likes to hide. Marcus and I spend 3 days compiling documentation, selection criteria, anonymized voting records, conflict of interest policies. We prepare it all not as defense, but as infrastructure. If they're going to look, I tell him, they can really look. He nods. That's not how most people play this. I know. The first donor meeting is with a woman named Celeste Green, old money, soft voice, razor precision. She sits across from me in the conference room, hands folded neatly atop her purse. I admire your courage, she begins. But courage without moderation can destabilize a mission. Our mission was never stability, I reply evenly. It was access. She tilts her head. Access to whom? To people historically excluded from the rooms you're asking me to protect. A flicker, irritation, quickly masked. I've supported this organization generously, she says. But donors like predictability. I lean forward slightly. Then they should invest in something else. The words land cleanly. She studies me for a long moment, then stands. I hope you understand the consequences of that stance. I do, I say, and I hope you understand the consequences of conditional generosity. She leaves without shaking my hand. 2 hours later, her pledge is withdrawn. By the end of the week, 3 more follow. The finance team grows tense. Whispers circulate. At lunch, I overhear someone say, maybe she's pushing too hard. I don't confront it. I call a full staff meeting instead. We gather in the main studio, designers, coordinators, fellows, interns. No hierarchy, just people. I won't pretend this is easy, I say, or that we won't feel it. Eyes meet mine, some anxious, some steady. But I need you to hear this clearly, I continue. No one here is expected to compromise their ethics to preserve comfort. Not mine, not yours. A hand rises from the back. What if funding drops below sustainability? Then we adapt, I say. We downsize if we must, but we don't dilute. Silence, then Maya speaks. I didn't come here because it was safe, she says. I came because it was honest. Others nod. Something solidifies in the room. Alignment is quiet, but when it happens, you can feel it. The journalist emails the next day, the same one from the think piece. Would you be open to a follow-up conversation? I don't hesitate this time. Yes, I reply. On the record, the interview is different. He's sharper now, more direct. Do you see yourself as a disruptor? He asks. No, I say. Disruption implies chaos. I'm building structure where none existed. Some say you're alienating powerful allies. I'm clarifying expectations, I respond. Powerful allies who require silence aren't allies. He pauses. That's a bold position. I smile slightly. It's a clear one. The article publishes 3 days later. This time my name is in the headline. The tone is measured. Fair. It includes quotes from fellows, staff, independent observers. It includes facts. The response is immediate. Emails pour in, not all friendly, but many supportive. Messages from people who have watched organizations like ours be absorbed, softened, and rendered harmless. A former fellow writes, "This is the first time I've seen someone in your position refuse to trade us for comfort. Thank you. I sit with that longer than I should." The board meeting is scheduled for Friday. Emergency session. The word alone is telling. Elaine arrives early. So does Richard Hale. I hadn't expected him to show. You invited him, I ask Marcus quietly. He requested observer status, Marcus replies. The bylaws allow it. Of course they do. The meeting is tense from the start. Elaine wastes no time. We need to discuss leadership risk. Be specific, I say. Your public stance is drawing scrutiny. It's personalizing the organization. I am accountable for the organization, I reply. Visibility comes with that. Richard leans forward. This is exactly what I warned you about. You're turning principle into provocation. No, I say calmly. I'm refusing to pretend they're separate. He shakes his head. You're isolating yourself. I look around the table. At Marcus. At 2 board members who have stayed silent but attentive. At Elaine, whose influence depends on leverage. I'm not isolated, I say. I'm aligned. The room stills. Alignment terrifies people who survive on ambiguity. The vote is called, not to remove me. Not yet, but to commission an independent review, governance, donor relations, leadership conduct. On the surface, it's reasonable. In context, it's pressure. I nod once. I welcome it. Elaine looks surprised. Richard looks irritated. Marcus meets my eyes and smiles faintly. That night, I don't work, I don't strategize. I sit on the couch with Noah, legs tucked beneath me, the city humming outside. Are you okay? He asks. I think for a moment. Yes, I say, but I'm not untouched. He nods. That's allowed. I lean into him. For years, I thought strength meant not needing anyone. Now I know better. It means choosing who gets to stand beside you when it costs something. Before bed, I check my phone. A message from my mother, missed call, no voicemail. I don't feel the old pull. Instead, I feel something steadier. Distance, chosen, I turn the phone face down. The review will come, the judgment will follow. And whatever survives it will be real. The review begins quietly. No announcements, no leaks. Just calendars filling with interviews and document requests, the steady hum of examination settling into the foundation like weather. An independent firm, impeccable credentials, no personal ties. Exactly what I would have chosen myself. Still, scrutiny has weight. It changes how people move through hallways, how they phrase questions, how long they pause before speaking. I notice who grows careful and who grows braver. The first interview is with me. 3 reviewers sit across the table, laptops open, expressions neutral. Why did you refuse the Hale proposal? One of them asks. Because it compromised decision-making authority in ways that conflicted with our mission, I answer. Some would call that pragmatic governance. Some would, I agree. I call it a transfer of power away from the communities we serve. They type. Do you believe your personal values influence organizational direction? Yes, I say without hesitation. Leadership without values is just management. A beat. Then one of them smiles slightly. Staff interviews follow. No coaching, no scripts. I tell everyone the same thing, tell the truth. Maya comes out of her session flushed but resolute. I told them why I stay, she says. And what would make me leave? Good, I reply. Both matter. Midweek, a donor publishes an open letter, not a withdrawal, something more performative. It circulates online under a headline about ideological capture and founder overreach. My name trends again, this time alongside words like polarizing and ungrateful. Noah finds me reading it at the kitchen table at midnight. Do you want me to be angry on your behalf? He asks gently. I smile tiredly. Maybe tomorrow. He pours me tea instead. The board fractures in small, telling ways. Elaine schedules private calls with other members. Marcus declines to attend. One board member resigns quietly, no statement, no explanation. Another sends me a message. I didn't sign up for this fight, but I respect how you're handling it. Respect without presence. I understand the limitation. I don't resent it. The hardest interview is the one I don't expect. The reviewers ask if they can speak to my family. I pause. My family is not involved in the organization, I say carefully. They may still offer context, one reviewer replies, especially given public interest. Public interest. The phrase tastes metallic. I agree to provide contact information with conditions. No speculation, no attribution, no framing without verification. They accept. I don't tell my mother. Her call comes anyway, angrier than before. Why are strangers asking me questions about your leadership? She demands. Do you know how this looks? I do, I say calmly. It looks like accountability. You're inviting criticism, she snaps. You always did have a talent for making things harder than they need to be. I close my eyes. This conversation isn't productive, I say. I'm going to hang up now. She scoffs. Running away again? No, I reply quietly. Running toward something better. I end the call. My hands tremble for a moment, then they still. The article drops before the review concludes. Another think piece, this one harsher. It quotes sources close to the family describing me as driven, unyielding, difficult to support. I read it once, then I don't read it again. I know those words. They've followed me my whole life. They're what people say when a woman stops absorbing their discomfort. The staff rally surprises me. An internal memo circulates, written by someone anonymous, then signed by nearly everyone. We support leadership that prioritizes mission over appeasement. It's not defensive, it's declarative. I pin it above my desk, not as armor, as witness. The review concludes on a Thursday afternoon. The reviewers request one final meeting. They look different now, less neutral, more human. We found no evidence of governance misconduct, the lead reviewer says. No improper donor influence, no conflicts of interest. Relief loosens something in my chest. We did find, she continues, that your leadership style is unusually values-forward. I wait. In our assessment, she finishes, that is a strength, not a liability, provided the board is aligned. I nod. That's the work, I say. The report is released publicly the next morning, clean, clear. Explicit, it praises transparency, recommends minor structural adjustments, and affirms the foundation's independence. Elaine resigns within the hour. Richard issues a statement wishing the organization continued success under evolving leadership. I don't respond, donations dip for a week, then rebound. Different donors this time, smaller checks. Fewer conditions. A message arrives with one of them. Thank you for proving that integrity isn't a branding exercise. I sit with that longer than the numbers. That night, alone in my office, I finally let myself feel it. The exhaustion, the grief, the cost. I think of my wedding day again, of walking forward without the people I was taught to chase. I understand now what that moment was preparing me for. This, choosing myself when it would be easier to negotiate my worth. I turn off the lights. Tomorrow, the work continues. But tonight, I let the quiet hold. The noise fades faster than I expect. Not all at once, more like a tide pulling back inch by inch. Headlines slip off the front page. My name stops trending. The opinions move on to someone newer, louder, easier to flatten into a story with villains and heroes neatly assigned. What remains is quieter and heavier, because now there's nothing to react to. Only what I choose to build next. The Monday after the report goes public, I arrive at the foundation early. The building is still half asleep, lights dimmed, hallways echoing with my footsteps. I unlock my office, set my bag down, and stand for a moment without turning on the lamp. For years, movement saved me, momentum, achievement. The next milestone, stillness is new. I sit, breathe, and feel the unfamiliar sensation of arrival without applause. The board restructuring meeting is efficient. Necessary changes, clear votes, no dramatics. We reduce the board by 2 seats, add term limits, formalize a community advisory panel with real authority. Not symbolic, not decorative. Power shared, not borrowed. When it's over, Marcus lingers. You didn't flinch, he says, not once. I flinched, I reply, just not where anyone could see it. He nods, that's leadership. No, I think, that's survival evolving into choice. Maya knocks later, carrying a hard drive and nervous energy. The film festival got back to me, she blurts. They want it. I stand so fast my chair skids backward. Which one? All of them, she laughs breathlessly. Regional, student, emerging voices. I hug her before she finishes the sentence. Her joy is unfiltered, electric. And in it, I feel something settle. Proof that the fight meant something beyond my own spine stiffening under pressure. We celebrate with terrible vending machine coffee and plans that sprawl too big for the whiteboard. This is the work that stays. My mother doesn't call. Not that week. Not the next. Instead, a letter arrives. Handwritten, measured, no accusations, no apologies either, just updates. Your father's been tired lately. The garden didn't do well this year. Logan's considering a move. I read it once, then fold it carefully and place it in a drawer, not burned, not answered, just acknowledged. Distance doesn't have to be dramatic to be firm. Therapy feels different now. Patricia notices it before I do. You're not bracing today, she says. I consider that. I think I stopped waiting for them to change, I reply slowly. And in doing that, I stopped rehearsing conversations that were never going to happen. She smiles. That frees up a lot of energy. It does, I agree. And it's terrifying. Why? Because now I can't blame them for what I don't do next. She lets the silence work. I don't rush to fill it. At home, no one notices the shift too. I don't collapse into him at the end of the day the way I used to, not from exhaustion anyway. Instead, we cook. Slowly, music playing. I tell him about moments that aren't crises. Decisions that feel almost mundane. That's a good sign, he says, handing me a wooden spoon. You're not living in reaction anymore. I lean against the counter, watching him. I don't know who I am without resistance, I admit. He meets my gaze. You're about to find out. The first real test comes quietly. A major donor reaches out. New, influential, interested. Their proposal is generous and conditional. They want naming rights, messaging input, a seat at the table. Old reflexes stir. Compromise, justify, calculate. I ask for 24 hours. That night, I reread the founding document I wrote alone at my kitchen table years ago, back when no one was watching, when clarity mattered more than optics. I see my younger self in the margins, certain, unpolished, stubborn. I honor her. The next morning, I decline the offer. Politely. Firmly, the donor pushes back. I don't. The deal dissolves. I feel the loss and then something better. Trust in my own consistency. Weeks pass. The foundation's rhythm settles into something sustainable, not explosive growth, intentional growth. Maya's film premieres. She thanks me publicly, then privately, then stops thanking me at all, because she no longer needs permission to take up space. That's the goal. I run into my father unexpectedly at a bookstore downtown. He looks smaller, older. We stand between shelves of biographies neither of us intends to buy. You seem, well, he says. I am. A pause. You didn't have to cut us out completely. I meet his eyes. I didn't, I say gently. I stepped back until there was room for honesty. He nods but doesn't understand. That's okay. Understanding was never the requirement. Later, driving home, I don't replay the conversation. I don't dissect it for missed opportunities. I let it be exactly what it was. Incomplete. And no longer consuming. On a Sunday morning, I wake early and walk the neighborhood alone. No agenda, no phone, just movement for its own sake. I pass families loading cars, runners stretching, a woman watering plants on her stoop. Ordinary life. I think of the girl I was, measuring worth by proximity to approval. I wish I could tell her this. You won't win by being chosen. You'll win by choosing yourself and letting the rest fall into place. Back home, I draft a letter, not to my parents, to myself. I write about what I will no longer accept, what I will protect, what kind of leader I intend to remain when no one is watching. I seal it and place it in my desk. A compass, not a contract. The foundation hosts a small gathering that evening. No press, no donors, just recipients, mentors, staff. Stories spill out, messy, hopeful, unfinished. I listen more than I speak. This, too, is leadership. Presence without performance. As the night winds down, Maya finds me by the window. Do you ever wish it had been different? She asks softly. With your family, I consider her question carefully. I wish I hadn't thought I had to disappear to survive, I say. But I don't wish for a version of them that never existed. She nods, absorbing that. You built something anyway, she says. Yes, I agree. And so will you. When the last guest leaves, I turn off the lights. The building hums quietly around me, not a monument, a living thing. I step outside into the cool air, feeling grounded in a way I never did when I was chasing validation. This is what comes after the storm. Not triumph, not revenge, but authorship of my time. My work, my boundaries. And for the first time, that feels like more than enough. Time stretches differently now. Not in frantic bursts measured by deadlines and crises, but in wide, breathable arcs. Weeks pass without incident. Months layer gently, each one adding weight instead of pressure. This is the season no one prepares you for, the one where you're no longer proving anything, only tending. The foundation moves into its permanent space in early spring. An old brick building near the river, sunlight pouring through tall factory windows. We restore it without erasing its past. Exposed beams, original floors, scars left visible on purpose. This place has lived, Maya says during the walkthrough, just like us, exactly. I insist on one design choice that confuses everyone else, a long communal table at the center of the main floor. No corner offices, no hierarchy embedded in furniture. Work happens face to face here. Chosen family grows quietly. Naomi hosts Sunday dinners now, rotating invitations, no expectations beyond showing up. My team drifts in and out, sometimes bringing friends, sometimes just themselves. No one asks why I don't go home for holidays anymore. They already know, and more importantly, they don't treat it as a deficit. One afternoon, I receive an email from a former scholarship applicant. She didn't get the award, but she writes anyway. You were the first person who didn't make me feel small for wanting more. I didn't get selected, but I applied to 3 programs after our interview. I'm still going. I read it twice. Then once more. Legacy isn't always visible, but it is measurable in motion. My relationship with Noah deepens in subtler ways, not dramatic declarations. Shared routines, morning walks, late-night debriefs, silence that feels companionable instead of tense. One evening he asks, "Do you want kids?" The question is gentle, unweighted. "I want to be careful with power," I say after a moment. "I want to make sure I don't repeat what was done to me." "That's already doing it differently," he replies. I hold on to that. My parents recede into something distant but stable. Occasional updates, neutral exchanges. They attend therapy, eventually, separately. I hear this through a third party. It doesn't change our relationship, but it shifts something inside me from defensive to resolved. Closure, I learn, doesn't always come from conversation. Sometimes it comes from consistency. The Foundation's third cohort is announced. Applications have tripled. We turn many away with care, with resources, with referrals. Capacity is a form of ethics. I say that often now. People listen. At a conference panel, someone asks me how I found the courage to stand up to my family. The phrasing irritates me. "I didn't find courage," I say into the microphone. "I found clarity." Courage came later. The audience nods, but I'm not speaking to them. I'm speaking to the version of me that once confused endurance with virtue. Maya graduates, top of her class. She thanks the Foundation in her speech, but she thanks herself more. I clap until my hands hurt. This is the sound of something continuing without me holding it up. On the anniversary of my wedding, Noah and I return to the same vineyard. No ceremony this time, just us. We walk the grounds at dusk, fingers intertwined. "Do you ever miss who you used to be?" he asks. I think of the woman who stood alone at the altar, determined not to break. "I don't miss her," I say, "but I honor her. She got me here." We toast to that quietly. No witnesses. Late that night, I sit at my desk and open the letter I once wrote to myself. The promises still hold. I add one more line. I will continue choosing growth over familiarity, even when familiarity calls itself love. I close the envelope again. Some vows are meant to be renewed. The story doesn't end with reconciliation. It ends with integration, with a life wide enough to hold joy without explanation and boundaries without guilt. I don't stand alone anymore. I stand rooted. And that makes all the difference. There is a moment, not dramatic, not announced, when I realize I am no longer haunted. It happens on an ordinary morning. I'm standing in the kitchen, barefoot, coffee cooling on the counter, while rain traces slow lines down the window. Noah hums softly as he flips pancakes, the sound loose and unguarded. My phone sits face down on the table, not avoided, not feared, just there. No tightness in my chest, no rehearsal of defenses, no waiting for impact. The absence is subtle, but it's complete. At the Foundation, the day unfolds with familiar rhythms. Meetings, laughter from the editing room, the low murmur of collaboration. I pass the wall of photographs, projects completed, voices amplified, lives redirected. None of them belong to me exactly. That's how I know I did it right. Leadership that leaves room instead of shadows. A new applicant catches my attention, not because of her resume. Because of the way she describes her work, I make films because I need to hear myself think. I pause there longer than necessary. Some truths recognize each other across time. My mother sends a message that afternoon. A single line, "I hope you're well," no request. No subtext. I reply with the same restraint. I hope you are too. It doesn't feel like loss. It feels like accuracy. Later, I attend a small screening, student work funded through the Foundation. No press, no panels, just folding chairs, dim lights, and nervous creators. One film ends in silence before the applause starts. The girl behind it wipes her eyes, startled by her own courage. I lean over and whisper, "You did that." She nods, stunned. This is the work that matters, not erasing pain, transforming it into something that can stand on its own. That night, I dream of my childhood home, but it's empty, not abandoned, just quiet. Sunlight moves across the floor, dust floats. No one is calling my name. I wake without grief. On a walk the next morning, I pass the old coffee shop where I once edited projects for hours, hoping someone would notice. The window reflects a woman I recognize now, relaxed, present. No longer auditioning for belonging, Noah asks me over dinner, "Do you think you're done?" The question isn't about work, it's about healing. "I think I'm done fighting ghosts," I say. "But I'll always tend the living." He smiles. "That sounds like you." The foundation reaches its 5th year. We don't throw a gala, we publish a report. Stories over spectacle, impact over optics. I write the foreword myself. This work began with absence. It continues with intention. I receive a letter from Maya. She's overseas now, filming, thriving. At the bottom, she writes, "You taught me that family isn't who claims you, it's who makes room for your becoming." I fold the letter carefully and place it beside the others that matter. The story doesn't close with forgiveness or confrontation. It closes with clarity. With a woman who knows the shape of her life and no longer needs permission to inhabit it fully. What remains is not bitterness. It's discernment, not longing, but direction, and that is enough. I used to think endings were moments, clean, decisive, unmistakable, a door closing. A speech delivered, a line crossed and never uncrossed. I was wrong. Endings are quieter than that. They happen in repetition. On a Tuesday morning, I wake before my alarm and don't feel dread. On a Thursday afternoon, I say no without explaining myself. On a Sunday evening, I set the table for people who want to be there and no longer wonder who is. This is how it ends. Not with confrontation, not with reconciliation, not with applause, but with alignment. The foundation no longer needs my constant presence. That was always the point. I mentor when asked. I advise when useful. I step back when it's time. Watching others lead no longer triggers fear of being replaced, only relief that the system works without me holding it together by force. Maya sends postcards from places I've never been, each one signed with the same line, "Still choosing myself." I keep them all. My parents exist at a distance now that feels honest. Occasional updates. Muted concern. No illusions. They are who they are, and I am no longer shaped by the space they couldn't fill. That might be the truest ending of all. One evening, Noah and I sit on the porch as the sun slips behind the trees. "Do you ever think about who you would have been if things were different?" he asks. I consider it. "I think she's here too," I say finally. "She just had to grow around the damage." He nods, understanding exactly what I mean. Later, alone at my desk, I open a blank document, not a speech. Not a proposal, not a defense, just a page. I write one sentence and stop. This life is not a reaction anymore. I save the file. The girl who once waited to be chosen no longer waits. The woman who built herself in the absence of love now builds rooms where others are seen. And the story ends here, not because there is nothing left to live, but because the question that carried me for so long has finally been answered. I know who I am, and I keep choosing her.